The limousine glided through the bustling city streets, a sleek dark shark in a sea of flashing neon. Inside, Elvis Presley leaned back against the plush leather seats, a mischievous grin playing on his lips. Beside him, his cousin Gene and his buddy Red West were buzzing with anticipation. Larry Geller, his spiritual advisor, chuckled quietly from the opposite seat. Tonight was supposed to be a good night, a night of relaxation, good music, and maybe a little friendly mischief. "All right, boys," Elvis drawled, his voice a low rumble. "This is it, the Stardust Serenade. Heard it's the fanciest joint in town." Red snorted. "Fancy usually means stuffy. You sure you want to deal with all that?" "Nah, not tonight," Elvis said, waving a dismissive hand. He was dressed impeccably, as always, in a dark custom-tailored suit that fit him like a second skin. A silk scarf, a deep jewel tone, peeped from beneath his lapel. His hair, dark and perfectly coiffed, gleamed under the interior lights of the car. He looked every inch the king he was, though he preferred to be just Elvis to his friends. "We're just gonna grab a drink, listen to some tunes, maybe a quick dance, and then head back. Keep it low-key." Low-key, for Elvis, was still a spectacle for anyone else. The car pulled up to a grand entrance, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. A long red carpet stretched out from ornate double doors, framed by towering marble columns. A few scattered photographers, already alerted by the arrival of a sleek limo, flashed their bulbs. But Elvis merely offered a polite wave. This wasn't a premiere. He just wanted a quiet night. At the end of the carpet stood a bouncer, a mountain of a man with a stern, unyielding face. He wore a crisp black uniform, his arms crossed over his massive chest. As Elvis and his entourage stepped out, a hush fell over the small crowd gathering on the sidewalk. Whispers started, then grew into a low murmur. "Is that?" "It's him. Elvis." Elvis offered his signature, charming smile, the one that had melted a million hearts. He walked confidently towards the bouncer, his friends trailing a respectful distance behind him. Jinnen adjusted his tie. Red cracked his knuckles almost imperceptibly, and Larry offered a serene smile. They were ready for anything, but usually anything meant adoring fans or eager paparazzi. "Never a problem at the door. Good evening," Elvis said, his voice smooth and polite. "We have reservations under Presley." His eyes, cold and assessing, swept over Elvis's immaculately tailored suit, then lingered for a moment on his slightly longer hair, before finally settling on his face, no hint of awe, only a rigid, almost disdainful expression. "I'm sorry, sir," the bouncer rumbled, his voice devoid of any warmth, "but we have a strict dress code and a strict policy on client suitability." Elvis's smile faltered, replaced by a look of mild surprise. "Dress code?" He glanced down at his suit, then back at the bouncer. "Is there a problem with my attire?" He was dressed more formally than most people would be on a regular night out, even at a place like this. The bouncer's gaze hardened. "We require collared shirts, no excessive jewelry, and hair of a moderate length. Furthermore," he paused, his eyes narrowing slightly, "we reserve the right to refuse entry to anyone we deem disruptive for." The Inn stepped forward, a frown creasing his brow. Red ever, the protector moved a step closer to Elvis, his posture tensing. "He's got a collared shirt. He's dressed fine. What's the problem?" The bouncer, unmoved, held up a massive hand, palm out like a stop sign. "That's enough. The decision is final. You will not be granted entry." His eyes flicked to Elvis, a flicker of something like challenge in their depths. It was as if he deliberately chose not to recognize him, to assert his authority. Elvis, despite the sudden chill of rejection, remained calm. His initial surprise was giving way to a slow burn of annoyance, but he wasn't one to make a scene, especially not in front of a crowd. He looked at the bouncer, really looked at him, trying to understand. Was it a power trip or genuine ignorance? He opted for the latter. "I assure you we mean no disruption," Elvis said, his voice still even, though a hint of steel had entered it. "We simply wish to enjoy an evening here. Perhaps you could clarify the specific issue." "The issue is that you do not meet our criteria, sir. Kindly step aside and allow other patrons to enter." The bouncer gestured dismissively with his head towards the growing line of people, their murmurs growing louder. "Or I will have to ask you to leave the premises." Red took a step forward, his fists clenching. "You talking to Elvis like that? You serious?" "Whoa, Red, easy," Elvis said, placing a hand on his friend's arm, holding him back. He didn't want to brawl on the red carpet that would certainly be disruptive. He looked at the bouncer one last time, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. It wasn't anger, not really. It was more like a quiet determination, or maybe a challenge. "Very well," Elvis said, his voice clear, cutting through the murmuring crowd. He gave the bouncer a polite but undeniably cold nod. "If that is your final word." He turned the motion fluid and regal and started walking back towards his limousine. His friends, seething with indignation, followed him, casting furious glares back at the unmoving bouncer. Gene muttered curses under his breath. Red looked like he wanted to turn back and make that bouncer regret his life choices. As Elvis re-entered the car, the crowd on the sidewalk erupted into shouts and gasps. The photographers went wild, snapping pictures of the king of rock and roll rejected from a fancy club. This was a headline, all right. Inside the quiet confines of the limousine, the mood was heavy. Red punched the seat cushion in frustration. "Can you believe that guy? He didn't even know who you were. Or he just didn't care." Gene shook his head. "The nerve." "After all you've done, all you are," Elvis leaned his head back, closing his eyes for a moment. Took a deep breath, letting the anger, the slight humiliation, dissipate. When he opened his eyes, the mischievous glint was back. It wasn't a glint of anger, though it was something else. "Well then, boys, if we can't get in, maybe we'll just have to buy the whole darn thing." The words hung in the air, audacious and outrageous. His friends stared at him, mouths agape. Was he serious with Elvis? You never quite knew. But that look in his eyes said he was serious as a heart attack. A rejected king was a king with a plan. And usually Elvis's plans were legendary. The limousine, no longer a majestic shark, felt more like a den of disgruntled lions. Red was still fuming occasionally, growling under his breath about the bouncer's audacity. Jinnen kept replaying the scene, shaking his head in disbelief. Larry Ever, the calm one, just watched Elvis, a knowing smile playing on his lips. He'd seen that look before. The look that said, "Elvis has an idea. And it's probably going to be big. Seriously, Red finally burst out, leaning forward. "You really gonna buy the place? Just 'cause some meathead with a bad attitude didn't know his king?" Elvis chuckled, a low rumbling sound that filled the car. "It ain't just about him, Red. It's about the principle. This ain't no ordinary club. It's the Stardust Serenade, supposed to be the best turn away." Honest folk paused, his gaze fixed on the city lights streaking past the window. "Nah, that ain't right." Jenin leaned forward too, catching Elvis's eye in the rearview mirror. "But buying a whole club, Elvis, for one night, that's a lot of money even for you." Elvis waved a dismissive hand. "Money ain't the point. It's about sending a message and having a good time while we're at it. Imagine it, boys." His eyes lit up the mischievous glint from before, now a full-blown sparkle. "We get the whole place. No snooty bouncers, no dress codes. Just us and whoever else we want to invite. We pick the music. We pick the food. It'll be the best darn party this city has ever seen. A party for people who appreciate real fun. Not just fancy names." Larry Geller finally spoke, his voice gentle. "Sounds like you're not just thinking about a party, Elvis. You're thinking about changing the atmosphere, making a statement about what true hospitality means." Elvis snapped his fingers. "Exactly, Larry. That's it. They want refined atmosphere. We'll give them atmosphere, an atmosphere of joy, of music, of real folks, having a good time. Not just folks looking down their noses at others. The initial shock on Red and Jean's faces began to fade, replaced by expressions of dawning understanding, then pure, unadulterated excitement. The idea was absurd, extravagant, but it was also so incredibly Elvis. He was a man who lived large, who dreamed bigger than anyone, and who hated injustice. Even small ones like this. "So, what's the plan?" Gene asked, his voice already buzzing with anticipation. "We just call up the owner and say, 'How much for tonight?'" Elvis grinned. "Pretty much, but we gotta do it right. We gotta make sure they know exactly who they turned away, and then we gotta make sure they understand what they're missing out on." He pulled out his phone, a custom-made device, and started scrolling through his contacts. "First thing tomorrow morning, I'm calling the Colonel, Colonel Tom Parker." The name hung in the air, a mixture of respect and trepidation. The Colonel was Elvis's manager, a shrewd businessman who could make almost any deal happen, but he was also notoriously frugal and pragmatic. This kind of spontaneous, outrageous expenditure might give him a heart attack. "Colonel's gonna hit the roof," Red muttered, but there was a hint of a smile on his face. "He'll come around," Elvis said confidently. "He always does. He knows when I've got my heart set on something, and my heart's set on this." He leaned forward, tapping the driver on the shoulder. "Take us back to the hotel, Sam, and clear my schedule for the morning. I've got some important business to attend to." Back in his penthouse suite at the hotel, the energy was still high, despite the late hour. Elvis paced the luxurious carpet, making mental notes, already planning. He wasn't just thinking about a party. He was envisioning an experience. "We need the best band," he mused aloud. "Not some stuffy jazz trio we need, some good old rock and roll, some blues, some gospel music that makes you want to move." "And the food," Jen added, now fully avacond. "None of that tiny fancy stuff. Real food, ribs, fried chicken, good southern cooking." Elvis clapped his hands together. "Yes, and plenty of it. And no expensive wine lists. Just good drinks. Whatever people want." He stopped pacing and looked at his friends, his eyes shining. "And, most importantly, we invite our people. Not just the Hollywood crowd, we invite the folks who've been with us since the beginning. The ones who stuck by us. Family, old friends, folks from Memphis." The idea was growing, snowballing into something magnificent. It wasn't just about spite, it was about generosity. It was about turning a negative experience into a positive one, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. Elvis hated injustice and he loved to share his good fortune. This was the perfect blend of both. Larry Geller watched him, a quiet smile on his face. "This isn't about proving a point to the club, Elvis, is it?" Elvis paused, looking at Larry, then back at the city lights. He sat down on the edge of the sofa, running a hand through his hair. "Partly maybe, but mostly, Larry, it's about making sure that no one, no matter who they are, ever feels like they're not good enough. That bouncer, he made me feel like I wasn't welcome, like I didn't belong. And that just ain't right." He leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Everyone deserves a good time. Everyone deserves to feel welcome, and tonight, at the Stardust Serenade, everyone will feel welcome. Or at least at our version of it. The plan was audacious, expensive, and utterly Elvis. It was more than just renting a club. It was renting an experience. A moment of pure, unadulterated joy and camaraderie. And the King Tonight entry was about to stage the most unforgettable comeback in the history of exclusive establishments. The Stardust Serenade wouldn't know what hit it, and neither would the Colonel. The morning dawned bright and early. But for Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's notoriously shrewd manager, it was about to get a whole lot brighter, and possibly a lot more expensive. His phone rang precisely at 8 a.m., a time he usually reserved for his first cup of coffee in the day's racing forms. Seeing Elvis P. on the caller ID. He sighed. Spontaneity was Elvis's charm, but it was also the bane of the Colonel's meticulously planned existence. "Elvis, my boy, to what do I owe this early morning pleasure?" The Colonel drawled, his voice a thick Dutch accent barely concealing his usual gruffness. Colonel Elvis's voice boomed through the line, full of an almost childish excitement. "I need you to do me a favor, a big one." The Colonel braced himself. "A favor? Is this about another horse? Another Cadillac? Because, Elvis, we just bought you a new—" No, Colonel, nothing like that." "Well, not exactly. It's about a club. The Stardust Serenade." The Colonel paused, a flicker of recognition. "Ah, yes, the fancy place you mentioned yesterday. Did you have a good time?" "Get in easily." A beat of silence. Then Elvis's voice, remarkably calm considering the previous night's events. "Actually, Colonel, no, we didn't get in. The bouncer, a real piece of work, said I didn't meet their suitability criteria." The Colonel's breath hitched. "What? You Elvis Presley turned away? That's preposterous. Did you tell him who you were?" "Tried, Colonel. He wasn't having it. Said my hair was too long, my suit too flashy, I guess. Said I might be disruptive." "Can you believe that?" A hint of genuine annoyance finally crept into Elvis's voice. "This is an outrage, an absolute outrage. This will not stand. I'll call their management. I'll have that bouncer fired. Colonel was already launching into a tirade, his mind racing through potential public relations, damage control, and vengeful tactics. Whoa, Colonel, hold your horses," Elvis interrupted, chuckling. "No need for all that. I've got a better idea." "Better idea? What could be better than setting them straight, Elvis?" "We're going to rent the whole place for tonight." Silence. A very long, very profound silence on the other end of the line. The Colonel's usually robust breathing seemed to have stopped. "Rent the Elvis? Are you feeling all right this morning? Did you get enough sleep? Rent an entire high-end establishment for one night. Do you have any idea how much that would cost?" The pragmatism was back, overriding the initial outrage. "Doesn't matter how much, Colonel," Elvis said, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "I want a whole place for my friends, for my family, for people who deserve a good time without being judged. No snooty bouncers, no stupid dress codes, just good music, good food, and good company." "But why, Elvis? Is this about pride? About showing them?" Colonel was grasping at straws, trying to find a logical reason for such an exorbitant, impulsive decision. "Partly, I guess," Elvis admitted honestly. "This is for the fun of it, Colonel. The sheer, unadulterated fun of it." Colonel sighed, a long, drawn-out sound that spoke volumes of his resignation. He knew Elvis. Once he got an idea in his head, especially one fueled by a sense of fairness and generosity, there was no stopping him. Arguing would be like arguing with a tornado. "All right, Elvis, all right. I understand the sentiment, though my wallet does not," he grumbled. "But this is highly irregular. They won't just hand over their entire operation for a single night. There are contracts, staff, suppliers. It's a logistical nightmare." "That's why I called you Colonel," Elvis said, his voice laced with charm. "You're the best there is. Make it happen. Offer them whatever they want. Just make sure it's ours for the night, and I want the bouncer who turned us away to be working the door under our rules." The Colonel gasped. "You want that fellow? Why? That's just cruel, Elvis." "No, Colonel. It's not cruel. It's educational. He needs to see what a real good time looks like. What it means to welcome people, not to turn them away. I want him to see joy, and maybe, just maybe, learn something about respect." Elvis's voice softened. "And I want him to do it with a smile, Colonel. A genuine smile. If he can't manage that, then he can go home." It wasn't about malice. It was about genuine human interaction. He could almost respect that. Almost. "Fine, Elvis. Fine, you drive a hard bargain even with your own manager, the colonel said, finally conceding. I'll get my people on it immediately. It will be expensive, mind you, very expensive. We're talking about closing down an entire top-tier establishment for a night. You understand the implications? I understand, Colonel. Just make it happen and let me know when it's done. We've got a party to plan. Elvis hung up, leaving the colonel to stare at his phone, a mixture of exasperation and grudging admiration on his face. Colonel Parker immediately picked up his other phone and barked orders to his assistants. Get me the owner of the Stardust Serenade now, and prepare a substantial offer. We're buying the place for a night. Yes, you heard me right. Tonight. He rubbed his temples. This was going to be one for the books, and Elvis, bless his generous, outrageous heart, was going to make sure of it. The king had been denied, but the king would return not as a patron, but as the benevolent host. And the colonel, as always, would be the one to foot the bill begrudgingly, but with a deep-seated pride in his unique, unpredictable client. Across town, in his opulent office overlooking the glittering city, Mr. Arthur Sterling, owner of the Stardust Serenade, was enjoying a quiet morning. Club was his pride and joy, a bastion of exclusivity and luxury catering only to the city's elite. He reveled in its reputation for being difficult to get into. It was in his mind what made it special. His secretary's voice crackled over the intercom. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Colonel Tom Parker on the line. He says it's urgent and regarding a unique proposition for the club. Arthur raised an eyebrow. Colonel Tom Parker? Elvis Presley's. He had heard about a commotion at the door last night, something about a celebrity being denied entry. He'd vaguely dismissed it, assuming it was a miscommunication or an overzealous fan trying to gatecrash. He hadn't bothered to check the security footage yet. Put him through, Brenda. Mr. Parker, Arthur said, his voice smooth and professional. To what do I owe the pleasure? Mr. Sterling. The colonel's voice boomed, cutting straight to the chase. My client, Mr. Elvis Presley, was unfortunately denied. Entry were, I apologize if there was a misunderstanding, Mr. Parker. Our bouncers are trained to uphold our strict policies. Perhaps Mr. Presley was not dressed. He was dressed impeccably, Mr. Sterling, the colonel cut in, his voice tightening. As for suitability, I assure you Mr. Presley is the furthest thing from disruptive. However, this isn't a complaint call, Mr. Sterling. It's an offer. Arthur leaned back in his chair, intrigued. Mr. Presley wishes to rent your entire establishment for tonight. Arthur nearly choked on his coffee. Rent the entire club for one night. Are you serious, Mr. Parker? As serious as a heart attack, Mr. Sterling. Mr. Presley wishes to host a private event. He wants full control of the premises, the staff, the kitchen, the music. Ever scoffed? A dry, amused sound. Mr. Parker, with all due respect, that's simply not how we operate. The Stardust Serenade is not available for private rentals on such short notice, especially for a complete buyout. We have reservations. And a very substantial offer, Mr. Sterling, the colonel interjected, his voice dropping to a low, persuasive tone. Mr. Presley is willing to pay you triple your usual night's take. And that's just a start. Think of it as a very lucrative inconvenience. Fee. Arthur's eyes widened. The Stardust Serenade was a gold mine, as it was but 3 times its normal earnings in a single night. That was enough to fund several months of operations, pay off significant debts, or even start that new wing he'd been dreaming of. Triple? He repeated, disbelief mingling with a sudden spark of greed. For tonight. Indeed. And that includes a generous bonus for all your stapedi. Mr. Presley wants everyone to be compensated fairly for their time. This was getting more and more unusual. A buyout was rare enough, but a guaranteed bonus for staff on top of such a high fee. It indicated not just immense wealth, but a strange kind of generosity. "What is the specific nature of this event, Mr. Parker?" Arthur asked, trying to sound nonchalant, but his mind was already doing the math. Private party for Mr. Presley's friends and family. A relaxed evening of music, good food, and fun. No media, no public access. Just a private gathering. Arthur mulled it over. It was an unprecedented request, and what a story it would make, even if it was just within his inner circle. Elvis Presley rented my club for a night because he was turned away. It was absurd, but also legendary. "And what about the staff?" Arthur asked, a sudden thought occurring to him. "Specifically my head bouncer, Marcus. He was the one on duty last night." The colonel's voice took on a mischievous tone. "Ah, yes, Marcus. Mr. Presley has a special request. Regret your... Marcus, one... breast. Mess correct. Then he won't be needed, and Mr. Presley's offer for the buyout will be slightly adjusted downwards for inconvenience. Mr. Presley is very particular about the atmosphere tonight." Arthur chuckled, a genuine if slightly bewildered laugh. "So, your client was turned away, and now he wants to teach my bouncer a lesson in hospitality by paying me a king's ransom." "Precisely, Mr. Sterling, and in the process he wants to throw a party for people who deserve a good time. So, what say you? Do you have a deal?" Arthur paused. Looking out at the city, the opportunity was too immense to refuse. And who knew, maybe it would even be good for the club's legend. "Consider it done, Mr. Parker," Arthur said, a wide grin spreading across his face. "The Stardust Serenade is all Mr. Presley's for the night, and Marcus will be at the door with the biggest smile he can muster." The colonel let out a satisfied grunt. "Excellent. My people will be in touch shortly to Fukuoka. The paperwork and transfer the funds. We'll also send over a team to discuss the specific arrangements for the evening. Mr. Presley will be arriving later." Arthur hung up the phone. Still grinning, he immediately called his general manager. "Stewart, cancel all reservations for tonight. Every single one. Yes, you heard me. Right. We're closing for a private event, an exclusive buyout, and get Marcus in my office immediately. We need to have a little chat about hospitality and smiling." Word would spread like wildfire through the club staff. The king of rock and roll was taking over. The Stardust Serenade bastion of rigid exclusivity was about to be turned upside down, and Arthur Sterling, the shrewd owner, knew he just made the most bizarre and most profitable deal of his career. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city as Elvis's limousine pulled up to the Stardust Serenade once more. This time, however, there was no bouncer at the door. Instead, Arthur Sterling himself, the club owner, stood on the red carpet, a nervous but eager smile plastered on his face. "Mr. Presley," Arthur said, extending a hand as Elvis stepped out of the car. "It's an honor welcome to the Stardust Serenade. It's all yours, sir." Elvis shook his hand, his grip firm. "Mr. Sterling, thank you. I appreciate you making this happen on such short notice." His eyes scanned the grand facade of the club. It was beautiful, no doubt, but felt cold. That was about to change. Arthur gestured towards the doors. "Please come in. My general manager, Stewart, and head of events, Brenda, are waiting to discuss your vision for the evening." As Elvis stepped inside, his friends followed, a triumphant gleam in their eyes. The interior was even more opulent than the outside. Crystal chandeliers sparkled, velvet drapes hung heavily, and polished marble gleamed under soft spotlights. It looked like a museum, not a place for dancing and laughter. "Beautiful place, Mr. Sterling," Elvis observed, his voice thoughtful. "Very grand," Arthur beamed. "Thank you, Mr. Presley. We pride ourselves on creating an atmosphere of unparalleled elegance." Elvis turned to him, a faint smile on his lips. "Well, tonight we're going to swap elegance for pure, unadulterated fun. I want this place to feel warm, Mr. Sterling, like a big, comfortable living room, but with a stage." Arthur's smile wavered slightly. "A living room?" Exactly. First things first, Elvis continued, walking deeper into the main hall, his eyes scanning the space. These tables, they're too formal. Can we move some of them? Create more open space for dancing, less separation, more mingling. Stewart, the general manager, stepped forward, clipboard in hand. We can certainly reconfigure the layout, Mr. Presley. Perhaps arrange them more like a lounge. Perfect. Elvis snapped his fingers. And the lighting? It's too dim, too mysterious. Can we brighten it up? Not like a stadium, but enough so everyone can see each other's smiles. And maybe some colorful lights. Something to make it feel alive. We have colored gels we can use for the spotlights, Mr. Presley. Fantastic in the music, Elvis said, his voice brimming with excitement. No elevator music. We're going to have a live band, a proper one. I've already made some calls. I want rock and roll, blues, some good old country music that makes you want to tap your feet, maybe even get up and sing along. Arthur cleared his throat. Mr. Presley, our resident jazz quartet, is highly acclaimed. I'm sure they are, Mr. Sterling, but tonight it's about a different kind of magic. And the sound system, can we make sure it's powerful? I want the music to fill every corner of this room. Only the finest Mr. Presley immolated wines, rare spirits, signature cocktails. Excellent. Elvis interrupted. Keep all that, but I also want beer. Regular ice-cold beer and soft drinks and milkshakes and whatever else folks might want. I want everyone to feel comfortable ordering exactly what they like, not what they think they should like. He then addressed the kitchen staff, who had gathered wide-eyed to see the king himself. Chef Elvis said, approaching the head chef, a portly man with a worried expression. I hear you make incredible gourmet dishes. Indeed, Mr. Presley, the chef puffed out his chest a little. Our amuse-bouche are renowned, and our soufflés are divine. Wonderful, Elvis said with a grin. But tonight, I want comfort food. I want fried chicken, ribs, maybe some mac and cheese, stuff that makes you feel good and plenty of it. No tiny portions. I want a feast. The chef's jaw dropped. Gourmet Michelin star-level chefs didn't do fried chicken. And desserts, Elvis continued, oblivious to the chef's distress. Peach, cobbler, banana pudding, apple pie, the good stuff, and a chocolate fountain. Arthur Sterling and his staff looked increasingly bewildered. This wasn't just a private party. It was an entire philosophical overhaul of their establishment. The pristine, elegant Stardust Serenade was about to become a very expensive juke joint. Then Elvis's gaze fell upon a side door usually reserved for staff. And what about that room there? He asked, pointing. Stewart consulted his clipboard. That's our exclusive VIP lounge, Mr. Presley, usually reserved for our highest tier members. Very private, very quiet. Elvis smiled. Perfect. We'll set up some of those old-fashioned arcade games in there, a pinball machine, a couple of those classic coin-op games, and maybe a pool table, just for some extra funds. His is going to be better than they ever imagined. As the afternoon wore on, the Stardust Serenade slowly began its transformation. Crew members, initially confused, then energized by Elvis's infectious enthusiasm and the promise of generous bonuses, began moving furniture. Chandeliers were adjusted, spotlights re-aimed, and colored gels snapped into place. The kitchen staff, initially aghast, started pulling out different menus, realizing they were about to cook the most glorious, unpretentious feast of their lives. Elvis, hands on his hips, surveyed the evolving scene. It was still the Stardust Serenade, but it was losing its cold, untouchable aura, slowly but surely becoming something else. Something warm. Something welcoming. Just then, a figure walked past the main entrance, inspecting the outside. It was Marcus the bouncer, looking stiff and uncomfortable in his uniform. He saw Elvis through the glass, and his eyes widened in surprise and a hint of dread. Elvis caught his eye, and instead of a glare, he offered a small, polite nod. then a faint, knowing smile. Marcus swallowed hard. He knew what was coming. And Elvis intended to make sure he saw it all. The Stardust Serenade was about to sing a very different tune, and Marcus would be there to hear every note. With the transformation of the Stardust Serenade well underway, Elvis turned his attention to the most crucial element of his grand plan: the guest list. This wasn't going to be a typical Hollywood party filled with publicists and power brokers. This was going to be a gathering of genuine hearts, the people who truly mattered to him. "All right, boys," Elvis announced, sitting on a velvet sofa that had been pushed into a more casual arrangement. "Time to call the troops. Who are we inviting?" Red pulled out a small notebook. "First, the whole Memphis Mafia, of course. All the guys, their wives, kids if they want. The Memphis Mafia were Elvis's loyal inner circle, a mix of friends, cousins, and bodyguards who were more like family." "Absolutely," Elvis agreed. "And don't forget the extended family. My Aunt Delta, Uncle Vester, even some of the distant cousins who might not always get to come out here to lay. Make sure they know this is an invitation from the heart." Jean started scribbling names. "We should invite the musicians from the studio too, the ones who really jam with you, not just the session pros." "Good call, Jen," Elvis said, snapping his fingers. "James, Burton, Ronnie Tutt, Jerry Sheff. Those guys know how to make music sing, and the backup singers too, the sweet inspirations, Imperials. Tell them to bring their singing voices, because we're gonna have an all-night jam session." Larry Geller, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "What about people outside your immediate circle, Elvis? People who might appreciate this unique opportunity?" Elvis looked thoughtful. "Mrs. Jenkins at a fancy club." "Why not?" Elvis grinned. "She's probably never been to a place like this, and she deserves to see how the other half lives, especially when the other half is having a real good time. This isn't about being exclusive," he continued, his eyes twinkling with ideas. "And that lady Sarah, who always cleans my hotel, she's always so kind. Invite her and her family. And what about the mailman who always delivers with a smile? Or the chef from that diner, who always makes my favorite chili? It was a crusade of kindness." "Elvis," Jen said slowly, "this is going to be a huge guest list. Are we sure the club can handle everyone?" "They'll handle it," Elvis said confidently. "We rented the whole place, remember, and tonight everyone's a VIP. The only requirement is to come ready to have a good time and share some laughs." Calls were made, phone lines buzzed. The Memphis Mafia became a temporary call center reaching out to friends, family, and unexpected invitees. The reactions were varied: surprise, disbelief, overwhelming joy. Mrs. Jenkins, frail and elderly, nearly dropped her phone when she heard it was Elvis Presley inviting her to a fancy club in Los Angeles. "Are you quite sure? Dear me. I've never even been on an airplane." "Don't you worry, Mrs. Jenkins," Jen assured her. "Elvis is sending a private plane for you, and a car to pick you up at the airport. You just get yourself ready for a wonderful night." Sarah, the hotel maid, gasped when she heard the invitation. "Mr. Presley, you want me to come to your party at the Stardust Serenade, but I'm just—" "You're a wonderful person, Sarah," Elvis said when he got on the phone himself, "and you deserve a night out. Bring your husband, your kids. This is going to be a family affair." The contrast between the usual clientele of the Stardust Serenade and Elvis's chosen guests was stark. Instead of celebrities and millionaires networking, there would be truck drivers, grandmothers, barbers, and musicians, all united by a genuine connection to Elvis and a shared desire for simple, heartfelt fun. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, the transformation inside the Stardust Serenade was nearing completion. The formal tables were gone, replaced by comfortable seating areas and a wide-open dance floor. The stage was set up for a live band, instruments gleaming under the newly installed colorful light. The scent of southern cooking was beginning to waft from the kitchen, mingling strangely but deliciously with the lingering scent of expensive polish. Elvis, dressed now in a more casual but still stylish outfit, a silk shirt, tailored trousers, and one of his signature gold chains, walked through the club, admiring the changes. It felt different. He saw Marcus the bouncer standing by the main entrance, his face a picture of forced neutrality. He was still in his crisp uniform, but his posture seemed a little less rigid than the night before. His eyes, though, still held a hint of bewilderment. Elvis walked up to him. Marcus jumped, slightly surprised. "Why, yes, Mr. Presley, Marcus." "Well, Marcus," Elvis said, his voice kind but firm, "tonight you're not just a bouncer, you're a greeter, and your job is to make every single person in the world, because tonight they are—" He paused. "And I expect a smile, Marcus, a real one." Marcus swallowed hard, looking at Elvis's kind but expectant face. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. An invitation to be part of something genuinely special. He felt a tiny, almost imperceptible tug at the corner of his lips, a practice smile. Elvis gave a knowing nod. "That's a start. Tonight's going to be a night to remember, Marcus, for all of us." The first guests would start arriving soon. The Stardust Serenade, once a symbol of exclusion, was about to become a beacon of warmth and welcome, all thanks to the man who refused to be turned away. The first stretch limousines and taxis began to pull up to the Stardust Serenade, not with the usual air of hushed exclusivity, but with a vibrant anticipatory hum. Guests stepped out, some dressed in their Sunday best, others in comfortable casual clothes, all of them wearing expressions of delighted disbelief. Marcus the bouncer stood at the entrance, his uniform impeccable, his face a mask of polite professionalism. His mind, however, was reeling. He'd been given strict instructions by Mr. Sterling. Welcome everyone genuinely. And smile, Marcus, smile. He tried a few practice smiles in the reflection of the glass doors. They felt stiff, unnatural. Then a familiar face approached. Elvis Presley, making his official entrance. He wasn't in a limo this time, but walked up with a bounce, in his step already surrounded by a small group of his friends, including Red and Gin. He was wearing a deep blue silk shirt, open at the collar, revealing a gold medallion-tailored black trousers and gleaming shoes. He looked relaxed, radiant, and utterly joyful. He paused beside Marcus, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Remember what I said," Marcus Elvis whispered, a warm smile on his own face. "Welcome them home." Marcus swallowed. "Yes, Mr. Presley." As the first wave of guests reached the door, Marcus straightened, took a deep breath, and forced a smile onto his face. "Welcome to the Stardust Serenade," he recited the words, feeling alien on his tongue. Then, an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair approached. It was Mrs. Jenkins, Elvis's old Sunday school teacher. Her face alight with wonder. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, looking at the dazzling interior. "It's even grander than I imagined." Elvis stepped forward, embracing her warmly. "Mrs. Jenkins, you made it. I'm so glad you're here. Come on in. Make yourself comfortable. There's plenty of good food and music waiting for you." As he led her inside, Mrs. Jenkins gave Marcus a wide, appreciative smile. "Thank you, young man," she chirped. "You have a lovely smile." Something shifted in Marcus. A real smile from a genuinely happy person felt different. It felt good. He watched as Elvis greeted each new arrival with genuine warmth. Old army buddies, childhood friends, band members, even the hotel maid, Sarah, and her shy family. He shook hands, hugged, joked, and made everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. Club, once so stiff and formal, was rapidly filling with laughter and chatter. The newly arranged seating areas allowed for easy mingling. The colorful lights cast a warm, inviting glow. The scent of fried chicken and roasted meats, so out of place in such a high-end venue, was surprisingly comforting. The background music, usually subdued jazz, was now a lively mix of blues and early rock and roll emanating from the powerful speakers. People were already tapping their feet, some swaying to the rhythm. Elvis moved through the crowd, a beacon of hospitality. He introduced people from different parts of his life: a barber from Tupelo shaking hands with a renowned session guitarist, a hotel cleaner chatting with a member of his inner circle. Barriers were dissolving. Arthur Sterling, the club owner, watched from a discreet distance, a look of profound astonishment on his face. This wasn't just a party. It was an act of social alchemy. His rigid, exclusive club was being transformed, not just physically but spiritually. He saw his own staff, initially rigid and perplexed, slowly loosening up. Bartenders were joking with guests. Waiters were recommending plates of ribs with genuine enthusiasm. Even the chef, initially horrified by the comfort food request, was now beaming, seeing plate after plate of his southern feast devoured with relish. "Mr. Sterling, isn't this something?" Brenda, the head of events, whispered beside him, a rare smile on her face. "I've never seen the club like this." Arthur just nodded, speechless. The atmosphere was infectious. It wasn't just about Elvis. It was about the joy he created, the permission he gave people to simply be themselves and have fun. Suddenly, the lights on the main stage brightened. Elvis, casually carrying a guitar, walked up, followed by several of his band members. The crowd cheered, anticipating a performance, but Elvis just grinned, adjusting the microphone. "All right, everybody," he called out, his voice filled with pure happiness. "Welcome. Welcome to our little shindig. I told you we were going to have a good time tonight, didn't I?" A roar of agreement filled the club. "Now I ain't here to give a formal concert," Elvis continued, strumming a few chords on his guitar. "But I figured since we got all this amazing talent in the room and some of the best darn musicians in the world, we might as well make some noise, right? More cheers. So this is just going to be a jam session. All right? No pressure, just fun if feel like singing along. You sing along. If you feel like dancing, you dance. And enjoying some good old rock and roll, well, you do that too." He winked at the crowd, then nodded to his band. The first chords of a classic bluesy rock number filled the room, instantly igniting a spark. Couples grabbed partners for an impromptu dance. Others clapped their hands and sang along. The Stardust Serenade had officially shed its formal skin, and beneath it pulsed with the vibrant beating heart of Elvis Presley's generosity and joy. Marcus, watching from the door, felt the corner of his lip twitch upwards. This time the smile was almost effortless. The Stardust Serenade pulsed with an energy it had never known. Polished marble floors, usually reserved for elegant waltzes, now vibrated under the enthusiastic stomping of boots and the joyous twirls of dancers. Elvis, truly, in his element, was a whirlwind of motion on stage. He wasn't performing a structured set, he was simply jamming with his friends, his voice raw and powerful, effortlessly switching between rock and roll anthems, soulful blues and heartfelt gospel tunes. "All right, who wants to hear a little something for the soul?" Elvis called out, his guitar slung low. The crowd cheered. He launched into a gospel hymn, his voice soaring, filled with a purity and passion that quieted the room even as it stirred hearts. Old Mrs. Jenkins dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, humming along. Sarah, the hotel maid, clutched her husband's hand, awestruck by the sheer power and emotion. After a few gospel numbers, Elvis winked. "Now I think it's time we loosened up a bit, don't you?" He transitioned backling into a blistering rock and roll number, his hips swaying, his famous sneer making a brief playful appearance. The dance floor erupted. Red and Jean were among the first, pulling unsuspecting guests into impromptu jives. The staff, initially stiff, found themselves increasingly drawn into the festive atmosphere. A bartender, usually focused on precise measurements, laughed aloud when Elvis personally requested a tall glass of cold milk during a break, saying it was his favorite concert drink. The chef, now beaming, walked through the crowd offering platters of freshly baked cookies and banana pudding, genuinely proud to see his comfort food so enthusiastically received. Elvis stepped off the stage for a moment, mingling with the crowd. He danced briefly with Aunt Delta, who blushed but giggled delightedly. He shared a laugh with Mr. Henderson the barber, who was still pinching himself, unable to believe he was actually here in Hollywood with Elvis. Mr. Presley, a young waitress, no older than 19, approached him timidly. "This is incredible. I've never seen anything like it. This place is usually so quiet." Elvis grinned at her. "That's because it needed a little bit of Memphis magic, sweetheart. Everyone here deserves to let loose and have a good time. What's your name?" "Lisa," she stammered, surprised he'd even ask. "Well, Lisa, tonight you're not just a waitress. You're part of the party. You enjoying yourself?" Lisa's eyes lit up. "Oh yes, Mr. Presley, more than I ever thought possible." "Good," Elvis said, giving her a reassuring smile. "That's what it's all about." He even spotted Marcus the bouncer, standing near the entrance, still stiff but now to Elvis's amusement, tapping his foot to the beat. "Yes, Mr. Presley, it's quite the party." "It is, isn't it?" Elvis agreed, looking out at the joyous scene. "See, Marcus, when you let go of all those silly rules and just let people be themselves, good things happen. Pure fun, pure joy." Marcus looked out at the dancing, the laughter, the smiles. He saw Mr. Sterling, the owner, even laughing at something with the chef. He saw his colleagues, usually stressed, now actually enjoying their work. He slowly, almost imperceptibly nodded. "It is different, very different. Different good, I hope?" Elvis prompted gently. Marcus looked at Elvis, then back at the joyful crowd. A true, unforced smile finally broke through his stern facade. It was a little clumsy, a little shy, but it was real. "Yes, Mr. Presley, different good." Elvis clapped him on the shoulder. "That's all I ever wanted, Marcus, just for everyone to have a good night." He spent the rest of the night making sure of it. He danced with a young girl, the daughter of one of his distant cousins, teaching her a few simple steps. He sang requests, both silly and serious. He posed for countless photos, always with a genuine smile. He even sat down at a table with some of the kitchen staff, listening intently to their stories about working at the club and sharing some of his own anecdotes about life on the road. The night wasn't just about Elvis's fame. It was about his humanity, his generosity, and his innate ability to connect with people from all walks of life. The Stardust Serenade, once a symbol of velvet ropes and exclusive guest lists, had become a vibrant living testament to the power of shared joy and genuine camaraderie. It was the kind of party that would be talked about for years, not for its extravagance, but for its heart. And the music, of course, the music was unforgettable. As the night wore on, the Stardust Serenade truly became a home. Away from home for everyone present. The initial awe some guests felt at being in such a fancy establishment slowly gave way to comfortable enjoyment. Elvis, moving through the crowd, fostered this feeling of ease with every interaction. He found Mrs. Jenkins sitting on a plush sofa, a plate piled high with fried chicken and mashed potatoes balanced on her lap. Her eyes were bright with happiness. "This is just wonderful, Elvis," she said, her voice raspy but clear. "I haven't eaten this well since your mama's Sunday dinners and the music." "Oh, it just fills you up." Elvis sat beside her, gently taking a piece of chicken from her plate. "Glad you're enjoying it, Mrs. Jenkins. You deserve it. You taught me to sing the good Lord's praises, and look where it got me." He winked. She chuckled, shaking her head. "It got you far, boy. But you never forgot where you came from, did you?" "Never." Elvis affirmed, his gaze sweeping over the diverse crowd. "That's why tonight is so important. Everyone here, they're my people, family, friends, folks who work hard, who deserve a little joy." "Well, your mom's right," Elvis said, laughing. "Mind if I cut in for a bit, Sarah?" Sarah, blushing, laughed. "Oh, Mr. Presley, I couldn't possibly. Nonsense, me'd—" Elvis gently took her hand, pulling her onto the dance floor. He led her through a surprisingly graceful, relaxed dance, making sure she felt comfortable and at ease. He wasn't showing off. He was sharing a moment of pure, unadulterated fun. Her husband watched from the side, a look of utter amazement and pride on his face. Later, Elvis found himself chatting with one of the club's regular bartenders, a young man named Mike who looked... "Mr. Presley," Mike said, wiping down the bar. I can't believe this. This is the busiest and happiest I've ever seen this place. And the tips. Everyone's so generous." Elvis leaned over the bar, lowering his voice conspiratorially. "That's because when people feel good, Mike, they share the goodness. And you and your team, you're doing a fantastic job making everyone feel welcome. That's what it's all about. Not just pouring drinks, but pouring kindness." Mike looked at him truly, seeing him, not just a superstar, but the thoughtful, compassionate man beneath the legend. "Thank you, Mr. Presley, that means a lot." Elvis spent time with the musicians, joining them on stage for improvised jams, calling out songs and encouraging solos. He shared stories of his early days, the struggles and the triumphs, reminding everyone that even the king started somewhere. The band members, seasoned professionals, found themselves playing with a renewed passion inspired by Elvis's pure love for music. Even the kitchen staff, after the initial shock of the comfort food request, had embraced the challenge. The chef, proud of his now clean plates, came out to greet Elvis. "Mr. Presley," he said, wiping his hands on his apron, "I must admit, when you first requested fried chicken, I was skeptical. But seeing the joy on these faces, the way they devour every morsel, it is truly gratifying. Perhaps more so than any soufflé I've ever prepared." See, chef? Sometimes the simplest things are the most satisfying. Good food, good company. That's the recipe for happiness. As the night wore on, the sense of camaraderie settled over the entire club. Strangers talked, laughed, and danced together. The initial hierarchy of the Stardust Serenade had vanished, replaced by a temporary community built on shared joy and Elvis's boundless generosity. The bouncer, Marcus, still at his post, found himself smiling naturally, greeting guests with genuine warmth as they stepped out for a moment of fresh air. He even held the door for a little old lady who struggled with her cane, helping her down the steps with an ease he hadn't thought possible. He caught Elvis's eye across the room. Elvis nodded, a subtle gesture of approval, a silent acknowledgement of the transformation. Marcus felt a warmth spread through him. He'd learned more about hospitality in one night than in years of strictly enforcing rules. It wasn't about keeping people out, it was about making them feel welcome. And Elvis Presley, the man he had turned away, had taught him that lesson, not with anger, but with an open heart and an open wallet. It was a heartwarming paradox, and Marcus knew he would never forget it. The Stardust Serenade, for one magical night, had become a place where everyone belonged. As the first hint of dawn painted the sky in soft hues of rose and gold, the party at the Stardust Serenade slowly began to wind down. Laughter was replaced by contented sighs, dancing by comfortable conversation. People, exhausted but exhilarated, started to gather their belongings, their faces glowing with memories of an unforgettable night. Elvis, looking surprisingly fresh despite hours of socializing and singing, stood by the main entrance, personally bidding farewell to each departing guest. He hugged his family members, clapped his friends on the back, and offered sincere thanks to the many unexpected guests he had invited. "Thank you, Mr. Presley," Mrs. Jenkins said, her eyes sparkling as she prepared to leave. "This was the most wonderful night of my life. You're still that sweet boy full of light." "You taught me that light, Mrs. Jenkins," Elvis said, bending down to give her a gentle kiss on the cheek. "Now you go on home and get some rest." Sarah, the hotel maid, approached him, tears welling in her eyes. "Mr. Presley, I don't know what to say. This was a dream, come true for my family. My son hasn't stopped talking about dancing with you." Elvis smiled warmly. "It was my pleasure, Sarah. You and your family deserve all the good things in life. Take care." As the last guests drifted out, a quiet stillness settled over the club, a palpable echo of the joy that had filled its every corner. The once pristine, now slightly rumpled interior carried the scent of delicious food and the lingering warmth of shared happiness. Arthur Sterling, the club owner, approached Elvis, a look of profound respect on his face. "Mr. Presley," he began, his voice hoarse with emotion, I don't know what to say. This was not just a party, it was an experience, and I must apologize again for last night. It was a grave error in judgment on our part." Elvis placed a hand on Arthur's shoulder. "No need for apologies, Mr. Sterling. Sometimes a little misunderstanding can lead to something truly special. Don't you think you have a beautiful place here?" Arthur nodded, looking around. "It feels different now. Warmer. I never thought I'd see it like this." Then Marcus the bouncer walked up. He still looked tired, but his posture was relaxed, and for the first time Elvis saw a genuine smile on his face. Not one he had to force. "Mr. Presley," Marcus said, his voice surprisingly soft. I want to apologize, too. I was wrong. I judged you, and I judged all these good people. You taught me a very important lesson tonight. About welcome. About kindness." He paused, then added, "Marcus, you just made my night. That's all I ever wanted for you, to see what I saw. Good people, having a good time. No judgment, just joy. Shake on it." Marcus firmly shook Elvis's hand, a silent understanding passing between them. Before he left, Elvis made sure to thank every member of the staff who was still present, shaking their hands, looking them in the eye, and offering genuine words of appreciation. He handed Stewart, the general manager, an envelope. "Everyone on the team. Stewart, a little extra for their hard work, and for going along with my crazy ideas." The envelope, Stewart knew, contained far more than a little extra. As the sky brightened, Elvis stepped out onto the red carpet. For the last time that night, the limousine was waiting, its engine purring softly. He turned back, taking one last look at the Stardust Serenade. It no longer seemed so cold, so unapproachable. It held the echo of laughter, the ghost of music, the warmth of 1,000 genuine smiles. Red and Jean climbed into the car, exhaustion etched on their faces, but their eyes shining. Larry Geller offered Elvis a serene smile. "A most successful evening, Elvis," Larry murmured. Elvis leaned back in the seat, closing his eyes for a moment, a peaceful smile on his face. "Yeah," he said softly. "Sometimes all it takes is a little bit of heart, and maybe a whole lot of music." The limousine pulled away, leaving the grand Stardust Serenade behind. But the memory of the night, Elvis Presley's audacious act of generosity, would live on. Club might return to its exclusive ways, but for one magical night it had been transformed into a beacon of warmth, a testament to the power of kindness, and a heartwarming reminder that even a king, when denied, could choose to build a bigger, better kingdom of joy for everyone. Elvis, the king of rock and roll, had proven that true royalty wasn't about who you kept out, but about who you welcomed, and that more than any hit record was his greatest performance yet.